All right, here's our 1995 Jayco. It's a 28-foot motorhome, and we've just finished part one of our floor installation inside our Jayco motorhome. Now, for most of you that know about Jayco, it's put on a Ford frame, so it's basically a Ford chassis and with a motorhome body on it. Now, as we enter the motorhome, you can see there's my steps. We go up into the motorhome. You can see where we've taken out the carpeting. And by the way, taking out the carpeting in this motorhome was actually pretty easy because it had carpet, it had a mat underneath it, and there's only staples along the wall, and the floor, as you can see, is in pretty good condition. Now, we actually had, as you can see up front, there's the front cab. We had two Commodore chairs right there next to the wall, and right there where you can see the holes in the floor. We initially wanted to take out these two chairs, and then up against the wall, what we wanted to do was put some type of a sitting dresser that we could use for storage, cabinet storage, and you could sit on it and it would actually give us more space. What we ended up doing was we tried taking out the Commodore chairs, and I guess in this type of motorhome you're not supposed to take out the chairs because it was a total pain in the butt. I ended up using a Sawzall to cut off the bolts, and as you can see, they're good sized bolts. So we ended up taking off one, and the second one, we really don't have the access to get to it underneath, so we decided to leave that chair and to utilize a smaller space over here where we can put a cabinet, some storage right there, but it still gives us more space. Also, as you can see, there's 4 bolts in the floor, and apparently you're not supposed to put a new floor in these because that connects the propane tanks. Now the problem with that is if you take the bolts out, you have nothing holding up your propane tank underneath the carriage. So we have to leave those, and we're going to have to work around those. Back to the carpeting. Now, unfortunately, I think the carpeting was the first thing that they put in these motorhomes, because the carpeting goes underneath all the cabinets, all the appliances. So what we're going to have to do is we're just going to trim it. We've taken out the carpet. We're just going to trim up all the edges, and what we're going to do is put in a floating floor. Now what we're going to do with the floating floor is we're going to attach quarter round next to all the appliances, all the cabinets. That way it will hold down the floating floor, and it'll also hide the fact that there's carpeting that goes underneath everything. Now back here where my wife is, right here in the bathroom, we actually tore everything out of there and put in a new toilet, but we're not happy with the tile we put in unless we, I guess, put some trim in over the top. The stick-on tiles don't work too good in the motorhome for some reason, so we're probably going to have to redo this too with a floating floor. And as you can see, the carpet sticks out on the floor. There's the back bedroom. You can see the carpeting sticks out underneath the bed. But we're not going to take out the bed or the appliances. That's way too much work. What we're going to do is trim it all down, put in a floating floor, and then put quarter round next to all the walls, the beds, the appliances, and the cabinets. So today our goal is actually to just trim out all the carpeting and get it back underneath all the cabinets and appliances so that we can start installing the floor tomorrow. Now we got another problem there. Obviously wires are showing, but we'll cover that up with some wood trim, and you'll see that after we install the floor. If you're going to rip out your old carpeting and install a new floor in your motorhome, these are some of the tools that we used to tear out our carpeting and install the new flooring in our motorhome. As you can see down here, take out the carpeting. We used 2 pairs of pliers, a screwdriver, and make sure you have a good cutting blade and plenty of extra blades to go with it because you're going to need them. Now you add a flat nose pair of pliers, a snub nose. I use those to take out the carpets, staples. And here's my cutting knife. I use that to cut out the carpeting. And if the staples were too deep in the floor, I used a screwdriver to pop them up so I could pull them out with my pliers. So with that in mind, we ripped out the carpeting. Now after we ripped out the carpeting, we decided that we were going to install this vinyl flooring product. It's called Allure. It's from Traffic Master. It looks like wood. It has sticky tabs on it, and you just interlock your tiles. They just kind of snap together. It takes a little bit of time to get it done right. It's about an 1/8 inch thick. It's actually pretty nice flooring. A lot of people say it's easy to work with. I think it is pretty easy to work with, but you're going to spend a lot of time cutting this, especially if you have a bunch of angles in your motorhome. And it actually was a pretty good product to use, and it looks nice on the floor in the motorhome. Now, some of the tools I used, make sure you have a good measuring tape. You got to make sure you measure all your tiles correctly. Assortment of pencils. I used a roofing square for my shortcuts, and I used my T-square, my drywall T-square for my long cuts, because you're going to have to score them with your knife. You can use a level. Be better if you have a 3-foot level, because they're pretty straight and you can use those for your cuts. I also used a crowbar, a little bit, because I use shims, and I tried to shim my flooring about 1/8 inch away from the floor to allow for contraction and expansion. Although I don't know if my motorhome contracts and expands anymore. And you'll also need some